beautiful. Oh boy.
I love the distillery very much, and I will be happy to tell you about it. Alright, so the distillery district was started by two individuals, William Gooderham and James Warts. And they, if you go to the distillery, you will see Gooderham and Warts pretty much everywhere, on every wall, every window. So I guess they were a little self-involved, but I can't blame them, and that's because they had the largest whiskey distillery in the entire British Empire at the time, which is quite an accomplishment. So that's what it was. Distillery District was originally a whiskey distillery. There's lots of little museums while you're there that you can just walk through and see all the barrels and everything. During the First World War, however, it was used to make acetone and ketone, which are two ingredients for bombs. So that was to help the First World War effort. Briefly, coming up on your right, you will see the Young People's Theater, and if you know Drake, this is where he started from the bottom. He took acting classes here before, of course, he later went on to be in Degrassi, a Canadian TV show. Alright. After World War I, the Distillery District was again very temporarily a brewery. No longer though, it is known for having great restaurants, great shops. I recommend at the distillery, Cluny, C-L-U-N-Y, is a great French restaurant. They also have a little like boulangerie on the side. For something more, you okay, Teresa? For something more casual, Wildly Delicious is where I get all my lunches when I was there. Mill Street Brewery is a Torontonian brewery. I'm not going to say that word again. But it's all ages, so don't worry if you are like under 19, which is 19. And there's this Michelin star restaurant, Adrena. It's Spanish, very good, but it is one of the more expensive ones. So, last place I'll recommend, or I guess last two, Mexican. There's a spot called El Catrine. And there is an oyster house there that has really good seafood, poke, oysters, and yeah, that's there for that. Alright, on either side of you, you will see construction. Surprise, surprise. You are visiting Toronto in the latter of our two seasons, winter and construction. However, this construction is not just your everyday construction. This is actually for building the Ontario line. The Ontario line is going to be our newest subway line downtown. I mentioned earlier we only have one east-west subway line, and that's all the way north at Bloor. So, if you want to get around downtown, you'll have to take a streetcar or a bus. You're welcome to do that. You will get to your destination eventually, but it's not very fast. And I say that from not only experience, but there's a guy who has recently gone viral in Toronto because he's taken it upon himself to race every streetcar line. So he'll start with them at their home station and run all the way to the end. And I am happy to report he is currently undefeated. 9-0. He has done 9 different lines and beat every single one of them. So you can probably tell why the Ontario line is a much needed addition. Alright, if you're getting off at the distillery, we're going to be pulling up in just a minute and you guys will be good to go. And once you get off, I'll tell you how to get there. It's not very difficult. And yeah, don't miss me too much. I'll be right back. You're good to go. You can get the boards taken down. You just have to get permission from the Ontario Heritage Committee. But the bars are permanent. And sometimes my school in there resembled something along the lines of a prison cell, which was really a great learning environment. But it is beautiful and definitely a spot I recommend going to if you're looking for a good meal. Alright, perfect timing because coming up on your left, I want you to look for a little brick building with a green door and green windows. It's gonna be right on my left in about a second, right now. On your right. No, on your left. My apologies. Clearly it's been a long day and it's only halfway through. Now, that's the Enoch Turner Schoolhouse. The Enoch Turner Schoolhouse was the original public schoolhouse here in the city of Toronto. So it was built in 1843. It's not functioning any longer, but I will tell you firsthand that a lot of elementary schools in Toronto take field trips there. One of my most memorable field trips was to Enoch Turner. And that is not just because they make you dress up like you're in the mid-1800s and make you bring your lunch to school all wrapped up in a little cloth, water in a mason jar, you gotta write on slate all day. But they also give you allegedly a historically accurate new identity And I remember that my last name was something along the lines of like Salmon Head, Salmon Fisher, Salmon something. And I thought that was really disrespectful. Not only did I not like salmon, but what kind of name is that? So I did not choose to act out, but if I did, they had two ways for dealing with you at Enoch Turner. Number one, they would, if you had them, pin your braids to the wall for like a good 20 minutes. If you didn't have braids, they would make you wear a big tall cone hat that said dunce right down the middle, and they'd make you stand in a corner in front of the whole class that quite genuinely said shame above it, so the corner of shame. Yeah, they make you stand there for a good 15-20 minutes. So, really lovely, child-friendly things going on at Enoch Turner. Definitely nothing that will stay with you for a lifetime. Alright, we are headed back to stop number 1. I know it's hot. Bear with me. It's going to be about 10-15 minutes at most. You guys have been great. I know it's hot. Again, if you want like a map to fan yourself, that's not the best thing you have right now. But I like taking this part of my tour to talk to you guys a little more about Toronto generally. Things I think you should know, things that I think are important to know while you're visiting. So, first things first. You are currently in the most multicultural city in the entire world. I get a lot of people from Manhattan asking me if it's New York City and if I'm just embellishing to try and seem nice. No, it's not New York City. It's Toronto. We have over 200 different languages spoken here in my city. And over 150 different countries or cultures are also represented here. That is not the most important fact I'm going to give you though. The most important is that over half, around 51 to 52% of our residents are immigrants, first generation immigrants. And this is absolutely vital to the fabric of Toronto. It would not be the same city without them. If you guys are from the States or familiar with the States having a Alright. So, my name is Jill. You are lucky enough to be on my 2-hour tour today. I'll be your tour guide. Very quickly, I was born and raised here in Toronto, and I love being able to show you guys all around my city. I will try not to talk your ear off too much. Try is the operative word, but I'll give you some breaks to process at my very best. So, a couple of things before we get started. I promise you're not missing anything. Also on the bus today, if you're looking for our discounted tickets for any of our attractions like CN Tower, the Castle, Casa Loma, any museums, you're going to want to talk to Teresa, who's in the aisle behind you. As well, our lovely driver navigating this very difficult city to drive in is Kunga, and he's the best, so he deserves all of his flowers. Alright, a couple more things. Safety-wise, whenever the bus is not at a designated stop, please make sure you are staying seated. Decapitations are not a part of my 2-hour tour, and I'd like to keep it that way. As well, we have some very low branches and very low bridges, and please make sure you're not reaching out to touch any of those. I don't want you to get tetanus from the bridges, and I don't want you to get stuck. Alright, one last thing, and then we'll be able to get on our way. Every city sightseeing tour you take is going to be different, and that is because I don't get a script as a guide. None of the guys get a script, so lucky for you, I get to talk about whatever I want for 2 hours, and you're stuck with me. But I tend to focus on 4 main things besides all of the attractions that I will point out to you. The first is the architecture here in the city. I think the architecture is what makes Toronto unique. Toronto, or Yonge Street more specifically, used to be, for a very long time, the longest street in the entire world. It would have taken you over 48 straight hours to travel the whole thing. For reference, to get from Toronto to our east coast in Halifax, it's about a 17-hour drive straight. So, very long. Is there anyone from Minnesota on the bus? No? Good. And that's because Minnesota decided they wanted to take that lovely title away from Toronto, and they built a highway, Highway 11, which is not a road. So, our Guinness Book of World Records title is gone. However, some Torontonians will still try and tell you that Yonge Street is the longest street in the world. You might have heard them say that. And those Torontonians are what I like to call liars. They're all lying to you, so don't trust them. You can trust me, but I won't lie to you. Alright, now if you look around you, specifically on the right-hand side of the bus, I want you to look at something a little unconventional, and that's going to be the sidewalk. You will see that the sidewalk to the right of you is a different color. It's black, and that's because it's made out of black Mongolian granite, a very, very expensive stone, and that's for two reasons. The first is that to the left of these lights, all of that is the Mink Mile, the 7th most expensive shopping district in the entire world. And this second reason is going to sound fake, but I promise you it's true. Did anyone by any chance bring their high heels to Toronto today? Yeah? No? If you did, this is going to be where you want to wear them. And that's because black Mongolian granite has a frequency of 466 hertz. And when you walk on that frequency with high heels, it gives you that perfect like movie click-clack high heel sound. I promise you that's the real reason they chose this stone. And yes, I think that's just as ridiculous as you do. I guess the idea was if other people heard that sound, they would be incentivized to buy their very own overpriced pair of high heels at one of the many expensive stores on the Mink Mile. I guess speaking of which, do we have any bougie shoppers getting off at Stop 3 York? Ontario Museum has over 13 million artifacts. They have the most Chinese artifacts outside of China, the most Roman artifacts in Canada. Once you turn, you will also see a big crystal coming out of the wings, and that big crystal is called the Michael Lee Chin crystal. Michael Lee Chin donated just under $40 million to the ROM, so I guess you get a crystal named after you when you donate that much money, but it is a great museum to visit, and I highly recommend it.
Lovely. There's that guy.
Alright, coming up again on your left, you're going to see the Royal Conservatory of Music. This is a beautiful building. The RCM is one of the oldest and most prestigious music schools here in Canada. You don't really go there and learn in a classroom. I mean, you can, but most of the time you just buy their books and you follow their curriculum with your own piano teacher, and you do your exams there. Some notable grads are Shania Twain, Rachel McAdams, me, if any of you care. My piano wasn't good enough to graduate though. Alright, on the left-hand side, if we have any American football fans, this is our University of Toronto Varsity Blues football field. I'll let you know. I'll tell you. Alright, all clear, Kunga, all clear. Alright, so as I said, Casa Loma was built during 1911. It was completed in 1914. It was built for a man named Sir Henry Pellet. I always like to say if there are any couples on board, listen to this next part, and that is because Sir Henry Pellet commissioned this castle as a gift for his wife. So, don't accept anything less than a castle from your significant other. I guess permission to start poking and prodding. But those were all pre-screened and premiered right here at the As well, in front of us, you're gonna see, we're gonna drive up to a building with red crosses in the windows. Is anyone on my bus today from the UK? Yeah, alright. You guys know the BBC, of course. So, the Canadian version of the BBC is the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Channel, and this building with the red crosses is where that is. Now, these red crosses are not just meant to be a personal eyesore. They do have a function inside the CBC building. They film things like, if you've seen Shark Tank, the Canadian equivalent's called Dragon's Den. They film that in there. They film Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Canada. Smartest person in Canada. So clearly a lot of really original, definitely not rip-off shows are filmed in the CBC. But in front of us, I'll talk about soon, we have the Rogers Centre, where our Toronto Blue Jays play all their baseball games. And when those crowds get out, they are very, very loud.